Hey everybody, we're here on a different set, and joining me today is KackisHD. How do you say your name? Rick KackisHD, right?
Just KackisHD, Rick Kackis, Thick Kackis, Sir Cackington. It all works, man.
And we got MTashed here.
And that's how you say it.
Yeah. So you guys were in San Francisco.
Yeah.
And I was just like, oh my God, I've never had them on the show. I should reach out and see if you want to come on. And you told me to go to hell.
Yep.
But then I made you come anyway.
Yeah, I can't believe how sore my arm is from you strong-arming me there and just pulling me in. But
For real though, you're from Canada. I'm also Canadian, so it's great to have you on the show. Thank you for making the time to come over to IGN today.
for sure.
Of course.
So we're just going to use this opportunity while you're here to talk about Destiny.
What's
the
that?
The game that we all play probably too much, that I get too salty about 90% of the time, and yeah, get some of your perspectives on it. So would you guys consider yourself more PvP or PvE players? Just, I'll throw it to you.
I am definitely PvE side of things.
Yeah.
I am overwhelmingly PvE to PvP. I dabble, but mostly PvE.
And I'm the opposite. I mean, I can raid, I do them,
Can you
but come on, pretty good. But I find myself in PvP 90% of the time.
Yeah, I've been playing a lot of competitive this season and the previous season. I've been having a great time. I love the changes that they do, but I see a lot of negativity. A lot of people are still feeling negative about PvP, and I've been very critical about where Destiny is currently, and we'll get to that in a second. But PvP, it's really hard for me to be harsh on. So what are the community concerns being brought up on that side, and what do you see that they should be improving upon, or what are they doing right? A big load of
There's a lot there. There's a lot to unpack. I think the issue also is you could ask that to 50 different people and you get 50 different answers on what the issues are. I think there are some big outliers. You know, there's weapons like Lord of Wolves that people are kind of unanimously frustrated with, or handheld Supernova that are, unanimously they don't enjoy dying to that all the time. But then there's, really other concerns depending on kind of the skill level you're at, how you're affected by skill-based matchmaking. You end up finding different players that use different weapons. And so it's a tough thing. And honestly, if you look at the sandbox as a whole, I think that there is quite a solid amount of weapon balance, but it's almost as if a lot of the concerns are coming from matchmaking issues, not necessarily sandbox.
I got banned last night.
The can of worms has been opened.
Yeah. So like, there's the whole skill-based matchmaking conversation versus what's the other version? The other type
like
of
connection-based.
Yeah, connection-based, and like my game crashed twice, and I ended up getting suspended from competitive, and it sucked because A, I tried to rejoin those games as fast as I could because we were winning, and B, it just sucks to sort of be penalized for a problem that
it's not your problem.
Wasn't my fault. Like, I'm not one of the hackers. I'm not trying to manipulate the game in any way. And I think that's a problem that it seems like, I swear to God.
Okay.
Yeah. It seems like it's a problem that people are encountering and they're frustrated with. So there's the matchmaking side of it and the sort of hacking side of it. And if we're going into trials next season, they need to figure out
That's
where
a
they're going to go.
big concern. People are getting DDoSed on quick play.
Yeah.
Like, if people are willing to do that, or even comp, comp isn't even that serious, in terms of people will get DDoS, people will encounter hackers at low ranks of comp. And if it's already happening to that degree there, when you need to go, X amount of wins to get to the lighthouse, like, that's going to be pretty serious when it comes to DDoSing and hacking and stuff. So they really need to get a handle on that.
Yeah,
but
for sure.
And even cheating, though.
But
like, people are teleporting.
They did make that update. I thought it was super interesting. They had a weekly update that said, hey, we used to not have any way to reverse a ban because we'd go in beyond a shadow of a doubt. And they said, we're going to change that, have an appeal process. And to me, that says that they're going to start really going after people and like just banning people left and right. And there may be some innocent people caught in this. And that's why they're introducing an appeal process. That's the only thing that makes sense to me, is that we're going to see them get a lot more people taken off because of the cheating and DDoSing and all that stuff.
Yeah.
So I think that's good.
I hope so. I'm very excited about Trials. I've been having a blast with the new PvP mode since last season, actually. I hit Legend last season in comp. I never thought that would happen. I got to like 4,400 just solo queuing. Right? And then I'm like, okay, I'm clearly not going to get over this gap without some help. So, you put a call out, get some people that watch your streams, they help you. But what about for the average player? Is this still like a good experience for them, the solo queue thing?
I mean, the thing is I see so many comments that are like, this is the best PvP's ever been. And for me, it's the worst it's ever been.
Why is that?
Because of how the matchmaking impacts different people. And another thing that maybe people don't understand or I don't see is lobby balancing. So like
that I do.
Right. So this sounds so cocky, but like the game thinks that I'm better than I am. It must, because the people it puts me up
I've seen you
against,
play, dude. You're a god. God
No,
tier.
no.
I see you cracked.
No, but it thinks that I am, and so I play some of these like unbelievably good players. And if it's in a competitive setting or we're going for ranks and stuff, that's good. And if the connections are good, that's good. But the issue is, because of the skill-based matchmaking and like it's very closed parameters, it's finding people that are maybe in a similar skill bracket, but they're across the world. Like half of my lobbies are like Korean letters or something like that, and like there's nothing wrong with Korean players. It's
But
just
there is a connectivity
a
problem.
connectivity problem.
Because if you live in Canada.
Right, because
It's like
it's
you should be
peer-to-peer
matching them.
connections, right? Like it's not like we're on a server and it's like divvying up the ping or anything like that. It's just like their connection versus mine. And so for them, my connection's probably awful, and they're having a bad time shooting me. I'm having a bad time shooting them, and so then the integrity of the game is being ruined because you don't even know if your shots are hitting or missing, and people are teleporting. And
We played together like a couple months ago, and I remember like we just played a few matches together, and then we got hit up on Twitter by some guy saying, "I'm matching you two." We're both in Canada, like pretty close to each other in Canada, so it makes sense that we'd match maybe people in our area, at least North America. Guy tweets us and says, "I'm in Germany. I'm in Germany. Why am I matching both of you guys?"
and you're lagging all over the place.
Yeah, and it's like,
sorry, man.
Why are you? That's a great question. Like, you shouldn't be.
Right.
Yeah. Well, there was a time I remember back in the day when I'm West Coast, I'm in California, and I'm matching against somebody who is clearly out of my league. Like I've matched against gigs, I've matched against people that are PvP known players, right? Because they're in the same region as me, and I have seen one instance of that in the last 2 seasons, which is a nice change because gigs wins, right? Like versus Destin Legary of IGN, of course. But I'm doing better. So it is nice to see myself improve in the competitive space, but it's also nice not to be match made against the top level pros. Your balancing issue, I agree with though, because sometimes I'm the top KD, like I have a 5.0 and my teammates have like 0.3 and 0.2.
Right.
And then the other teams all plus,
like
plus 2 is their like lowest player. And I'm like, why don't you take the middle guy from there and put him here? Like I don't.
It's like they take like a LeBron James with a bunch of kindergarten kids versus a high school team. Like okay, maybe that guy is the best, but when all your teammates are in kindergarten, like they can't get the ball away from these high school players.
You stop talking about it.
Yeah, I get where you're going with your analogy.
But also to your point about like you saying, oh, I don't want to match gigs all the time. And that's totally fair. But I think the skill-based matchmaking debacle kind of breaks down to like people either saying skill-based matchmaking, remove it from the game completely, it's horrible. That's not the way to go. But also to say totally fine how it is, in fact, crank it up. Also not the way to go. It's not on or off. It's not a switch. It's a balance. And if people, if you have a lot of just above average players taking 10 minutes to find a lobby and matching the same people, like there's when there's 200,000 people online on Steam and you're recognizing names, wait a second, this is a little bit much. So dial it back a little bit. No, not remove it entirely, just dial it back.
I shouldn't be playing against a new player. Like I shouldn't be beating up a new player. It's going to ruin their experience. It's probably not going to be very fun for me. And like
it'll be fun for you. Let's be
maybe a little bit. But like that's always one of the arguments is like all you top tier players, you just want to smash on noobs.
Yeah.
And I'm against that because like I don't want the game to die because I'm smashing on noobs and the lobbies are all distorted. But I just want integrity in the games. I'll play the most competitive games ever. I did it back in League of Legends. I grinded my way up to Diamond 1 back in the day, and like I will play against the best people ever because I find satisfaction in beating them.
Yeah.
But it has to be a good connection. It has to feel like normal Destiny, not like laggy.
But at the same time, I think it's fair to say that, sweating is fine, especially if you're going to a competitive playlist. If
Yes.
you're in comp, let's sweat.
Yes.
Let's do the.
Yes.
Let's use the meta.
If you're in quick play.
Every once in a while, you have an hour before bed. You just want to play some PvP. Go after a little bit of a challenge. You want to use an off-meta gun.
Mm-hmm.
If there's incredibly strict skill-based parameters around that, you get punished for doing that. Like, God forbid you want to use something that's not in the meta. Your opponents are not. They're on this Mindbender's spare rations train, and they're not switching even if you do. And that can be very frustrating, especially when it's every single game plays out like that. So it wears on you. And again, that's the balance. I think it's a little bit too far. Just dial it back a little bit. Widen those parameters just a little bit.
Yeah.
And then if it goes too far, dial it back again. Like it's not like a one and done solution. Like, we found skill-based matchmaking, this is what it's like forever. Like, you can go back and forth and try to find that perfect balance.
Yeah.
And I don't think there's anything wrong with that.
I think Bungie's in the closest spot with PvP of figuring it out. Yes, there's a lot of things that they need to address. They need to address the matchmaking issues and the hacking issues. I think those are probably their top priorities. But if they just need to tweak the dial a little bit to get it into a really sweet spot.
Yeah.
There's like just things like I brought up, like getting banned for your game crashing is odd, but how do they determine that against the hacker? So I do understand their challenges. I think it's really, really close though. So you brought up something I was going to segue better than I'm going to right now. But anyway, the seasonal model. How are you feeling about that? You're a PvE player, because I think everybody's seen my rant video by now. A lot of people were talking about it last week. I just got to this point where I was really frustrated because I have no reason to chase anything. I don't feel compelled to play a lot of the game beyond experiencing the story, which it has been pretty solid. So like, story's been solid. I'm pretty happy with where PvP is at. Some things can be adjusted there, but within the seasonal model, I'm feeling fatigued and unincentivized to play. How are you feeling about it?
It's interesting. Like, on paper, it seemed like a great idea. I mean,
Yeah.
the fact that you have this new sundial activity, it's a pretty fun activity. You got a rotating boss. Like, the different bosses, they're not massively different, but they feel a little bit different. You're fighting the fire guy with fireballs. He's pretty different than the lightning guy, which, the beams of light come down. You're trying to avoid those and stuff.
Yeah.
The guy who traps you. It's a little bit different. The sundial's not a terrible activity. The fact that you can specifically link up these certain obelisks and you're like, I want a good breach light. I'm going to farm until I get it, right? That's all seems like that's what we wanted. That's what we asked for. But I think the problem is that they kind of blew everything on this initial experience, and then they kind of don't have enough follow-up, because you do those things. You farm the perfect breach light, and you get the perfect multi-kill clip, feeding frenzy, steel feather repeater, and you're like, oh, this thing slaps. This is great. You're feeling good. And then a month goes by, and then another month goes by. And, Legend Sundial was introduced recently. Why didn't that have some weapons unique to it?
I did one run, and I'm like, well, I unlocked the thing, I'm good.
It doesn't make any sense, especially like, stuff like, for example, the Perfect Paradox and the 2 seasonal weapons in the seasonal pass. They became available for the Time Lost bounties with the EDZ obelisk. Why not just not do that and put maybe one or both of them or all 3 of them into the Legend Sundial pool, where you can only farm them in Legend Sundial? Now it comes and it has some new weapons, and you have a new reason to farm, and some of those weapons are really good. The sniper rifle that can get like Vorpal weapon, triple tap, appended mag, that's a huge roll, people going after it. But like, you kind of have all this stuff out already, and you're introducing new things that don't have any incentive to play. Like, why do Legend Sundial?
For your power level, that doesn't really matter.
Yeah.
And isn't used for anything. Like, that's the thing, is like, there's so many things in the game that's like, you can do them, but why would you do them? And even with the weapons, like, is steel feather repeater auto rifle that good?
It's pretty crafty.
Is it that good?
It's pretty good.
But like, is there not an alternative? Like,
how do you sell me on that? Because I have hard light, right? Which is like destroying everything right now. And
in PvP or PvE?
Well, I mean, it's an auto rifle. Do I really need another auto rifle that's marginally better?
Or like,
and that's what I'm facing.
Yeah, like even like with the different archetypes, like there's spare rations, and then it's like, well, that's the best 150 RPM hand cannon. And we've almost hit this point where every archetype you can name, and even every archetype in the Sundial, it's like, well, there's already probably something really similar to that I could use that already has a god roll.
The problem is that the problem with those statements is that, the Steel Feather Repeater having Feeding Frenzy multi-kill clip, it's a legendary, not an exotic, so if you want to use a different exotic to the hard light, there's reasons to use it. There is. And the thing, you guys aren't wrong, where it's like, how many Feeding Frenzy multi-kill clip, how many Feeding Frenzy kill clip weapons do I need? Because the Cold Front SMG comes out, and of course that's a god roll, and that's the same god roll on all these other weapons. I get what you guys are saying, but alternatively, can they just make everything better than everything else every season, and we just have like everything one-upping each other, and
power creeps introduced.
Power creeps introduced, and then the previous season stuff all becomes bad because the new season stuff is better. So you have issues like that. So it is definitely an interesting balance. I think the way that you potentially go around this is by introducing new things. They had a bunch of new perks, and Vorpal Weapon made a big impact. Going for rolls with Vorpal is like a thing people are doing now. But really, all the other perks weren't quite good enough. And I wish they need to, I think, do it like a perk rebalancing where they look at a lot of these other perks that aren't performing, because suddenly you have weapons that no one cares about. If you rebalance perks they can get, if you rebalance, Pulse Monitor, I think is one that like no one uses, and suddenly that's good now. Oh, everyone's going back and doing these old activities and farming these Pulse Monitor god rolls and stuff.
Right.
So I think that's something they really need to be looking at.
What are the ones with crouching? Anyone with crouching, just
like field prep.
Field prep. Like okay, I got field prep on it.
Right.
Cool Guys made a point for that one focus fire where you can like on console especially you can become like a laser beam with.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, there's some nuances there. I think it's not as bad as people are making it out to be, but I think there is that inherent issue of like, okay, next season comes along, it's the same perks that we're looking for that we still. It's like reload perk, damage increasing perk every time.
I think that's the thing is like they've given us a lot of things to chase, and unfortunately, like because we play every day, like we've chased most of them or similar things. And so now I think the thing that's missing for me or the thing I'm hunting for is things to use them on.
Yeah.
Punishingly hard things to use them on or unique activities. I think that's where I'm feeling with the game is like, I've got a bunch of guns. I've got a bunch of SMGs. I've got auto rifles. I've got hand cannons. I've got every tool in the bag that I would ever need. But nothing challenging to use it
That's
on.
to your point.
Right?
Like how much marginally better is the Steel Feather Repeater? And it's like arguably in some areas it is, but you don't need that little marginal. There's nothing you're going for.
Even the raids, like the raids are so easy now. And I know someone watching this is going to be like, "What do you mean?" But like when you have a full fire team of coordinated people above the power level, they do become unfortunately pretty trivial. Like people are one phasing them. People are two manning 6-man activities. So I mean, think of the damage you need and the damage that we have if you're able to 2-man a 6-man activity.
But not only that, like it goes into the being a big raid guy myself, like it goes into the argument of like, okay, what happened to prestige mode? Because mastering a raid wasn't even the end of it, and
because there's more.
Oh, dude,
they do have challenges in Garden of Salvation and such, but it's just like, why would I do that?
Yeah, and especially since you have access to the entire loot pool in that initial thing. I mean, the Fatebringer, some of the best weapons in Destiny 1, the Fatebringer was a hard mode Vault of Glass drop. You couldn't even get it in normal mode. So you beat a raid, you weren't even done yet. So you always had that chase for that next piece of aspirational content.
Yeah, totally agree. And that's sort of what I'm echoing with that rant video, and that's why I think Destiny is in such a dangerous place, because these are really, really tough problems to fix. Sure, they introduced a new raid, but they have to like really get into the minutiae, the mechanics, and having that 2 difficulty system that we had with Destiny 1, and it's going to be really difficult for a company like Bungie to implement something like that.
But again, like raids is like more pie in the sky talk. Like we said earlier, with they can't even have unique weapons to Legend Sundial, let alone an entire hard mode raid with its own unique loot pool. Like, there needs to be that aspirational content, and right now there isn't.
It's become more about just collecting your set of weapons for the season. You're like, all right, I got one of each.
With an ever-lowering amount of vault space, too.
Yeah, that's a huge problem that I really wish they would come back and address, but I've been an advocate for the vault space fix for a long time.
Well,
there's so much junk I just have because I can't get rid of it because I just lose it.
Well, remember they said originally when they introduced collection, like we're looking into a way to save like rolls.
Yes.
Random rolls.
Right.
That would be unbelievable. You could just like withdraw, oh, I want this again.
Yeah.
Maybe you have to like remaster it or something.
Because I know that there's some I deleted back in the day and I wish I wouldn't have.
Yeah.
And like, the thing is too, is because I know that there's a lot of people that don't have 6 people to do a raid with or a coordinated group. I'd love to start seeing more dungeon type content. Like the 3-man stuff is awesome, but also you can solo the dungeons, and it's hard, but you can solo them. And I would love to see more content like that everyone can do. You don't need to go find someone, but solo difficult content with great rewards at the end. That's like the thing I think I'm missing. I always talk about it in RuneScape. Back in when I used to play RuneScape all the time, there's a couple activities. There's one called the Fight Cave, and it was like 63 waves of harder and harder and harder enemies. And like the final boss, if you didn't like switch your protection prayers properly, it one hits you. Like you cannot tank it, and stuff like that. And at the end is the best cape in the game. And I would love to start seeing stuff like that where like maybe
it's a coveted thing. Oh, you did X thing.
Maybe there's a hunter cloak that gives you plus 20 or 30 in every single stat or something like that, but it's crushingly hard to do. And, maybe you don't have time to play every day or as much as a content creator, but you also don't need a team to go and beat that. You can work on it and improve at the game, and hopefully one day you can beat it. Like I'd love to see some of those kind of aspirational content that everyone has access to, not aspirational content that groups of friends have access to. You know what I mean?
But that not everyone can master.
Right.
But I think it's also important, like hardcore players, we show up here, we're like, yeah, the game needs to be harder, bro. And there's other people playing like, I have plenty to do, like, people saying, I have plenty to do right now. And it's one of those things where it doesn't need to be either or. The way that they set up Sundial and these specifically farmable roles, I think that's great. And like new players and people who don't play that much can go after that Breachlight role, or can get that like perfect paradox role that they really want, because they can grab a bunch of the time loss bounties. I like that like farmable content, but there needs to be that in addition to a little bit more challenging content. And I think you could easily just take a couple of, not even add more weapons, just take a couple of weapons, a couple of things, a couple of seasonal mods maybe even, and take those and put those into harder content, the Legend Sundial, etc., whatever Imperium Foundation is. Like that's another thing, Imperium Foundation is...
Yeah, next week, right?
Yeah, and does it have its own loot pool? Because if not, if it doesn't have any, what even it is, but if it doesn't have its own specific things as rewards, why do it?
Yeah, even the strikes some of them have things that you can go after that have locked roles that are coveted roles that you would want to go for. Granted, there's better things
like
now.
Nightfall drops?
Yeah.
Yeah, Nightfall drops. Yeah. Nightfall drops, or the strike-specific loot that they introduced way back in, like, I think it was the Mars content, the second. Curse of Osiris? No, it was one after Curse of Osiris.
I think that was Nightfall. There is no strike specifically.
Yeah, it's
like the rocket launcher. I don't remember.
Yeah, that's Nightfall.
Yeah, okay. So the Nightfall-specific loot within the Nightfall strikes.
They stopped doing that. They introduced like, the new strikes with Shadow Keep that don't have anything unique to them.
There's no bar to accessibility with 99% of the weapons. There's a few things in the raids, like in Garden of Salvation, there are weapons in there. I wouldn't say any of them are things that you're chasing, though.
Yeah, exactly. It's like, there's a really good 1-2 punch shotgun, but you can get 1-2 punch on the perfect paradox. So it's like, why
or even the Python, or like there's other options.
Yeah, so
and like there's a pulse rifle, but it's marginally better if you get one perk. Like, it's like, is it enough to go get a group of people to go and do that raid?
Well, I really don't, to be honest, I'm not a huge fan of what they did with the raid loot. I don't think random rolls are the way to go. I like those like set rolls. It arguably would make it even more accessible and easier to get all the raid loot, but you have that chance for uniqueness, like Wrath of the Machine with a Genesis Chain having those unique perks that no other auto rifle could get. That really felt like a raid gun, whereas now, like you said, it's like, do I really need another hand cannon with a reload perk and swashbuckler? I have like 40 of those. I don't need those. And it's also unfortunate because people will go through the raid for their first time and get trash rolls. And it's like come out the other end, they're like, what was that for? You know what I mean? So
because like when I got my first Midnight Coup, I was like, oh my god, this is the best PvE hand cannon in the game. This is one of the best PvE weapons in the game. And I was excited. When I got my Fatebringer back in the day, like these are these weapons with prestige and with value. I mean, I think there was a kind of a thing going on where people were deleting their old Midnight Coups, and they had like 70,000 kills, or like 200,000 PvE kills. And they were like all like trying to see who had the most kills on it. And now it's just, you could get a gun of that caliber from a ton of different activities.
But if you're gonna have set rolls, I think you need that hard mode, because otherwise, like if you just do the one raid and you get all the loot, like that's not good. And you need to have a hard mode to like separate so it's a little bit, because if you're gonna get one and you're done, it needs to be hard to get.
You could also introduce coveted armor pieces, like a unique looking armor set, and that's how you acquire them.
Not only that, what happened to the intrinsic perks for their weapons that had Whirlwind's Curse or extra damage against Taken, or in the Vault of Glass does more damage against Oracles, even that. And then armor had like stuff that again applied to that raid. Remember the chest or the gauntlets for Wrath of the Machine had better heavy drops from Fallen, and those everyone wanted those.
Yeah. Well, now that's been replaced by the new mod system with raid-specific mods, right? So they've changed it.
Yeah, so it doesn't feel as good now.
Now we're starting to realize, that doesn't feel as good just applying it.
Exactly.
And then you also have the seasonal problem where they're switching out that seasonal slot. So I have to acquire a whole new set to apply these specific seasonal mods.
The amount of armor you need to get is insane, especially because the Season of Dawn mods are so potent.
Yeah.
Like the shotguns, the like infinite ammo shotgun build where you can double shotguns and heavy-handed and you can get kills and regen your ammo. But you need to have like specifically arc armor to make that work. And there's other great mods for solar, and there's other mods for void. And it's like I need to get 3 sets of armor for each character. It's just
with good rules.
Not to mention energy.
I didn't even think of that. Like when the new season came out, I was like, oh man, all the stuff I farmed is like not really good anymore. Like I can't even really use it anymore.
But if you want to do Garden of Salvation, which you'll need to do to get pinnacles, you need to keep that set of armor with Relay Defender. It's kind of getting pretty overwhelming.
Yeah, and not necessarily in a good way. And these are a lot of the challenges that Bungie is going to be facing. And the worst part about it is their feedback loop is very slow. So if they want to make one change into the game, we're probably not going to see that for a year. So that means they're probably operating on this model for the next 3 seasonal drops. 2? We have 2 more, right? It's 4.
2 more, and then likely something in the fall. Who knows what that is?
Yeah. So I've kept you guys for a long time. I guess I have one more question for you about Destiny 3.
Right.
Do you think we're going to get a Destiny 3? I can start. Give you guys a second to think.
Let's hear your thoughts.
So I think this is it for Destiny. I think Destiny 2 is what they're going to be building upon. I don't think we ever see a Destiny 3. Because they are developing a new game. There was a story about it today about how it's a little bit more artsy and humorous as opposed to like Destiny's model. And I think Destiny 2 is the workbench where they refine and retool the world of Destiny. And I don't think we ever see a Destiny 3. What do you guys think?
I mostly agree. I think that, Destiny 3, I think to say we'll never see it may be a mistake. I think that if Bungie is really passionate about starting, I think they want to make sure that they feel like, okay, is this really worth a new game? And if they do something like having a new character, like aside from Titan Warlock, Hunter, or something like that, or doing a drastic overhaul, they might consider a Destiny 3, but that would be multiple years off. I think that
we never saw World of Warcraft 2. And like they have the added
I think it'll
problem.
be Destiny 2 for a long time.
They have the added problem of how do we add a Destiny 3 while retaining everybody's disaster of a vault in the sequel, and introducing
or do we kill
new
their vault
weapons.
again?
Kill their vault again, because that's going to be a whole thing. Because further, you're saying, hey, everything you did didn't matter again, and we're already encountering that problem with the seasonal model. Where, everything last season doesn't matter now. You got to do all this.
It's a problem for sure, but I think, again, it's like if it was so major, we're talking, a new character and a darkness subclass or something like that, or a light subclass, and it was such a dramatic overhaul that people would be willing to give up their vault. Like, this is a new game. We're starting fresh. It's understandable. But, again, this is pie in the sky, and this would be years off.
Yeah.
Like, if it even happened at all.
MTashed, what do you think?
I kind of hope we can get an overhaul again, which, I mean, that's kind of greedy of me, but like, I don't personally mind losing all my stuff and regrinding it. That's like the most satisfying thing in a game for me. I feel like I've beaten.
Powering up. Right?
I feel like I've beaten Destiny 2, so I'm just kind of like playing new content with my already really good guns and stuff like that. And so it would be kind of nice to feel like I'm excited about stuff again.
Next season, you're going to have 10 more powers to go out.
Oh,
yeah.
So you can do that 980 Nightfall that you really need to do.
Yeah, no, exactly. But, that's the thing is I actually watched a video from Dado recently where he was talking about it where, a new subclass, they probably can just add that to Destiny.
Yep.
They can overhaul subclasses, they can overhaul skill trees. Like there's a lot of things that they'd be able to change.
Like they have. They actually did with a solar class, and people are, talking about the weighted knife
Yeah.
and the tracking of
Right.
Hunter solars. So that's actually been interesting.
So I don't know. I think they could build on Destiny. It's just, I think if they are going to continue to build on it, there are some core things that they do need to improve and fix and change and update, and like flinch or things like that. Like there's some things in the game that personally, like I wish they could overhaul the whole system, but they're kind of back end things that are probably trumped by new content. You got to give people new stuff to do. I don't know if they can allocate the resources to like redo the armor system. Are they going to redo the perk system? Like, is that?
But they did though. They overhauled everything with Destiny 2, and it was a disaster.
Yeah,
They did the double primary system. And now they
simplified
overhauled
everything. It was a pretty dramatic overhaul, and it didn't work out. And now they're like finally kind of fixed everything with Forsaken.
Yeah.
And it's like once everything is good, now we're telling them to overhaul it again. I don't know. It's very nebulous. Like I don't think anyone has the right answer.
Yeah.
I feel
it's tough.
I feel like more people like the game though, and just aren't vocal about it.
Yeah.
I'm sure there's a very large population that are in love, and if they hear us talking about all this, they're like, "What do you mean?" But
There's still there's
People
still
tell me to
lots of
shut
stuff
up all the
do.
time. They're like, all you ever do is complain. And it's like, that's because this is like the game that I play. So I'm really invested in the minutia of it.
We
like
complain out of
want
love.
it. Sort of.
We want it to improve, right? It's only out of positivity in the sense that like we're just trying to like, and we're usually when we complain, we're recalling old events and parts of Destiny where we're like, oh, this was better at this time. We're using the game to compare it to itself because it's been more positive at certain places in our opinions and stuff. So like I think it's at a pretty good spot, and I think while I agree with what all three of us said, obviously myself, but like, but it's one of those things where you do have to kind of understand that it is going to wax and wane, and right now, like. We are about a month away from a totally new piece of content drop in terms of a new season, and everyone's gonna be hyped and it's gonna be super fun, and then it's gonna wane and people are gonna get like, hey, why wasn't this changed and stuff?
That's
so
just the game.
It is just the game, but with problems with the seasonal model, especially we brought up armor and stuff, those are things that if they're not fixed now, they're gonna be an issue. I mean, like a whole new armor set with whole new seasonal mods, or three elemental armor sets with seasonal mods for each character next season, and the season after that.
I don't have space.
Like
It's just like.
our vaults will literally there's just no way.
Yeah.
So
Exactly.
that's gonna be an issue.
For sure. Guys, thank you so much for joining me. What would you think if they did like a Burning Crusade thing where they just destroy the world and change it in that way in Destiny 3? I was going to outro, but I forgot I wanted to say that.
That's dope.
They did that with
love
World of
I love
Warcraft,
that.
right?
Yeah.
Just destroy all planets.
I mean, take my vault away, take my everything away, take my light away. I don't care. If it's new content and new stuff, and like I think that's probably my favorite thing is powering up in games and getting those tools.
Same.
I would never complain, but I know that there are people that love their Guardians and love their items, so I think it's worth it though. For me,
I
it's
think that's
always
a
worth
great
it.
idea, but I think it would be cool if they kind of telegraphed that, like things started to get destroyed and it was like planets would disappear and then eventually you'd whittle it down to one thing and then Destiny 2 was done. It was over and you restarted in Destiny 3. So you kind of had a winding down period and you knew, you weren't like shocked, oh my gosh, my mindbender's gone. You knew, hey, things are looking bad, you're gonna lose everything, and you kind of had a process of, like you said, the world's getting destroyed, everything's crazy, and then we restart in a new last city in Destiny 3 with these new powers. I think that'd be sweet.
And like new enemies too. Like I'm getting a little sick of shooting thralls and dragons.
Yeah.
I'd love to see some fauna, like a giant toad or a giant tiger that attacks.
World bosses. That'd be so cool.
I think that's the one thing is like if they added a little bit more of that almost like fantasy type stuff into
In
it.
the original concept.
Yeah.
Because they did have giant toads.
Yeah,
Moth
exactly.
people.
Moth people.
Yeah. That was pretty cool. Guys, thank you so much for joining me on this side segment of Fireteam Chat in a different studio and everything. You know we do a point at the camera at the end of every show, right?
Okay.
Do you want to say Guardians out?
Yes.
All right.
Sure.
Well, thank you so much for joining us. Until we see you next time, Guardians out.